You're listening to your student play their assigned piece, and mentally you're making a list of things to fix. As soon as they play that last note, you want to get down to business. But before you do, consider trying the sandwich method for the most effective delivery of constructive criticism. Hey, if we haven't met yet, I'm Phoenix and I'm the Tattooed Piano Teacher. Today we are talking about using a psychological strategy to keep our students encouraged, motivated, and feeling good about their progress while still addressing the issues that come up as they're progressing through their lesson book. What is the sandwich method? It doesn't just apply to music. You can use this in any relationship, any conversation. The sandwich method is starting with a compliment, then inserting your criticism in the middle, and then ending with another compliment. So why does this apply to piano teachers? Why is it so important? And how do we implement it with our piano students in their lessons? If you've ever had an authority figure, a parent, a teacher, who only criticized all the time, and no matter what you did, you just got a list of things that you did wrong with it, you know how discouraging it can be. You want to give up on whatever task or endeavor that is, and you just feel like no matter how hard you try, you're never going to please this person, so why even try? As a piano teacher, sometimes the way you say things in a lesson is even more important than the actual words that you say. And that's why the key to being a good piano teacher is not years and years of education, is not absolute proficiency on the piano. Sometimes the number one thing that makes you a great piano teacher is empathy, communication skills, connection with your students. I could go on, but that's not exactly what this video is about. So because we all know how easy it is to get down on ourselves and to be totally clouded to all the progress we've made just because of one tiny thing that was wrong, let's help our students stay motivated and stay in that place where they feel like I can do this by correcting them in the most positive way possible. So here's how this would look in the context of a lesson. Let's say that you just heard your student play a piece, and let's say you've got a running mental list of like 12 things that probably need to be fixed. Before you address any of those, first you want to compliment. I try to make the first thing that comes out of my mouth after a student finishes a song that they have worked on something super positive. I try to keep it like an overall comment, maybe about their passion, their style, their expression, something like that. For a younger student, this could be something like, wow, your kangaroo hops throughout this piece were so bouncy. How did you learn how to bounce like that? Or something like that. But try to keep it something like big picture, because this sets up the feeling that they've succeeded at the piece, that they've done something good. So I would pick like a big picture compliment over a detailed compliment for your first part of the sandwich. You could also say something that you know your student is going to be really proud of, or something that you know they have tangibly improved over the past week. So if you have a student who's been working on something for a few weeks and you previously talked about starting the piece quieter and ending it quieter, but it was really hard for them because they're a loud player, but this time you noticed, hey, at least we made it down to a mezzo piano, then that might be what you want to start with. Like, wow, that was so cool how you were able to just sneak in on the beginning and then sneak out at the end. I really felt like, whatever relates to the song, I really felt like you told the story. I really felt like I was there, or whatever the case may be. So let the first thing that comes out of your mouth after a student has shown you what they worked on, something positive, even if they made more mistakes than did things right, even if they didn't practice it as much as you asked them to, even if, okay? Now, after you have said that, you're going to sneak in strategically your thing to fix. Now remember, you might have a list of like 12 things that you want to fix, but we're not going to list off all 12 of those things. That would not be effective. And usually, over the course of learning lesson book songs, fixing every single little thing is also not practical and not necessary. Now, of course, if you are learning something for, say, a competition and perfection is kind of the goal there, or you're learning something for a recital, things will look a little bit different. But even then, you want to space out your fixes from 1 week to the next. If we're talking about just a regular lesson book literature song, a 1-page or 2-page song that they just need to graduate so they can move on, then it does not need to be perfect, right? But as a teacher, you want to kind of prioritize the goals. So if this student is in a unit where they are being introduced to key signatures for the first time, then obviously getting those F sharps, getting those B flats that are written in the key signature is like really important. Now compare that to a student who has just been introduced to like intuitive pedaling with the lifts throughout it. And so that is like a totally new thing for their coordination, for their foot to do. And they're missing 1 or 2 accidentals here and there. Again, now we're going to prioritize the pedal thing over that because of where we're at and what we need this student to master to move on. Okay, so sometimes rhythm, notes, pedal, expression, dynamics. We're going to pick and choose what the most important thing is. When you've decided what you're going to bring up, then you want to bring it up super positively. So don't do this. Finish your first compliment, your first part of the sandwich, and then be like, but every single G was played as an A. So keep it positive. You could do this by asking a question. So let's use our previous example. I loved how quiet you started this piece. And then when it gets to measure 9, what changes about the mood of the piece here? So maybe the thing you want to fix is dynamics, or maybe it's like slurs or staccatos, or maybe it's like adding the pedal or whatever it is. But how can you like get the student to talk about the piece in a really positive way that will naturally lead the conversation to address, oh yeah, we should be putting the pedal down there, or whatever the thing is. Another way you can do this, at the end of your compliment, to just propose a suggestion, almost like it just occurred to you. So like, oh, I loved how quiet you ended the piece. I'm wondering, before that, it's actually supposed to get really big. I wonder if you have the strength in your hands to even just like pound that out a little more so that the ending is even more of a contrast, or something like that. Or I wonder if without writing in all of the F sharps, if there's a way that we could remember that all Fs are sharp. I wonder, fill in the blank. That's one way to approach it. Another way to approach it that I use sometimes is after the compliment. So again, I'll say like, I love how quietly you ended that piece. I'm wondering how we can lead into that. Do you mind if I steal your spot for a second and I play that last page? And then I will play around with some different interpretation things. And in some cases, this will even fix wrong notes. If the student hears me play it, they might automatically comment like, oh, that sounds different. I think I was playing that note wrong. Oh, okay, do you want to try it again? They'll be like, oh yeah. Now imagine the difference between saying all the notes in measure 54 were wrong to finding a way to getting to that together with them, and then they want to play it again. So you see my point? So get creative. Before you start spouting out everything that's wrong with what they just did, think about what you're going to address and what you're going to ignore for today, and how you can get there together so that you're on the same team in a positive way. Okay, so after you've tried that, after you've fixed something, or at least given them some tangible strategies on how to practice it at home, which you might want to write down because no one's going to remember everything you say, then the last part of the sandwich, the other slice of bread, is another compliment. By the way, if you're enjoying this video and learning anything, getting any ideas as a piano teacher, go ahead and give this video a like. Make sure you're subscribed so that we can chat again. So the final component is that final compliment. Rather than reiterating the first thing you said, I would just pick another thing to throw out there so that your conversation ends on a super positive note. Sometimes this will happen naturally because they'll literally fix something right there in front of you. And maybe you only mentioned one issue, but they fixed 3 issues because you did it in such a positive and effective way. And then you can compliment something else that they just accidentally fixed. But if not, in this case, you can pick another little detail. So let's say you complimented them on finally getting quieter at the beginning and the end. You fixed a crescendo up to a fortissimo in the middle of the song. And now you want to end with the compliment. Try finishing this sentence. Oh, I love how your left-hand octaves are really booming out. That's cool. I love how your foot is getting used to going up and down. I love how I didn't even have to say anything and you remembered that F sharp in measure 13. Or you can go with, I can really tell that you've been working on this measure. I can really tell that you are growing as a player, something like that. Or sometimes, if you really want an ego boost for this student, maybe if you sense that they got a little bit down during the fixing process, you might be able to redeem yourself with a, I wish all my students. Now, I don't want to compare students, but if you tell a student, oh, I wish all my students remembered to add in the B flat on that measure or something like that, that is like an instant ego boost, right? Because they're going to be like, oh, I'm the only one who noticed that, or something like that. So save that one in your pocket for a rainy day. All right, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, I'm assuming that you are a piano teacher who wants to keep getting better and better at teaching, learn how to communicate with your students, learn how to motivate them and inspire them. You might be interested in my little goal setting assignment book. If you haven't seen it yet, it runs through an entire calendar year of lessons for their weekly assignments and their practice, but it also has special pages for setting goals, rewards for meeting those goals, charts for keeping track of those goals. So if you really want to motivate a student who is really into tangible progress and rewards and stuff like that, you might want to check that out. And if you want to keep watching, here's a video I did about creative ways to introduce a new song in the lessons, and I will see you on that video or another one very soon. Thanks for watching.